Good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting for Tuesday, March 23rd to order. And our first item will be to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Any citizens to be heard this morning? Any citizens to be heard? Steve, anything online or?
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move to the payment of the bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from March 2nd.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Just one minor correction. In my report, it indicates Annie Martin, and it should be Andy. Andy.
All right, we'll make that, so that was a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Ebinger with the correction. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. All right, we'll move into our 8:35 COVID update with Public Health Director Kathy McKay. And Jamie, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We did give you the handout with our latest COVID data for this week. And as you look at the cases, we're still, of course, stable with our cases. It fluctuates up and down. We have 7,152 cumulative cases. The active cases this week are 124. They were 90 last week, but the week before they were 120. So they'll fluctuate within those timeframes depending on who is out of isolation. And then the new cases. We have 89 deaths. That was reported for this week, and that did not increase since last week. The number of deaths went up just a little bit across the state of Minnesota, but not a huge number. And then we have the numbers of ICU and those in Clay County and those in Minnesota. So the hospitalizations and ICU rates are really, again, stable. There's not a increase in those. 14-day case rate is, last week it was 25.96, and this week it's 24.84, so went down a little bit, so it's not continuing to increase. We'll see this spring. Of course, this will be fluid as we watch the numbers based on events and spring break, those kinds of things. So we'll see how those affect our daily case rates and our 14-day case rate. Our active case by age, again, this is just based on our active cases. So you can see the highest this week has been the 15 to 19 and the 20 to 24-year-olds. So those have topped out for this week. Our cumulative cases by age, pretty consistent across the spectrum, but the 20 to 24 have been the highest cumulative cases by age lately. And then the Clay County hospitalizations per week, so you can see the graph that shows number of admissions and, really had spiked in October, November, December, but has been consistently down for this the spring. And then the deaths, we've talked about that already. That has been not a huge increase. The hospitalization ICU graph is in there as well. So total hospitalizations and ICU admissions, again, remains stable across Clay County and across the state. And then I guess Jamie will go into the vaccination.
I just wanted to note of these active numbers for the 60-plus population, we're only showing 10 active cases. That's That's a pretty good, that must be a sign that the vaccine is doing its thing.
Yeah.
Out of 124 total, there's only 10 that are 60 plus.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay.
Okay,
19, yeah.
so then the next page, the vaccine administration and distribution data. The total number of people with at least one dose of vaccine in Clay County is at 22.7% and 25.7% for the state of Minnesota. Total number of people with the completed vaccine series, 12.2% in Clay County, 15.3% in Minnesota. People aged 50 to 64 with at least one dose, 35.1% in Clay County, 28.9% in Minnesota. And the people aged 65 plus with at least one dose of vaccine in Clay County, 70.4% and 78.9% in Minnesota. And then you can see the total vaccine administered just by Clay County in the bottom, 8,960 doses. And I believe this is our 12th week of vaccinating. On the graph down there at the bottom, you can see we gave 1,175 doses last week. We continue to vaccinate typically on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and we're doing the same this week. And we will be administering 975 doses this week. Again, our clinics are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have moved to where last week we invited a lot of what's considered the food processing and food manufacturing businesses, and then continue to invite anyone in Phase 1A, of course, and anyone 65 and greater as well. And then the population of the 45 to 64 with one or more underlying medical conditions. Population 18 to 44 with two or more underlying medical conditions, and then people age 50 years and older in multi-generational housing. And again, we're just posting that on the website for people to register, and continuing to reach out to businesses to say, we want to encourage you to have your employees sign up and be vaccinated. The next phase is to move in, which we don't have permission from the state to move into the phase or 1C, which is more essential workers in that group, and then general, and then eventually we'll get to 2, which is the general population, and we don't have a timeline for that at this point.
The challenge will be, as we see across the river, you know, you probably saw in the news, they now have eliminated their mask mandate. And also that they are moving into the general population next week. So they're, you know, quite a bit ahead of us in regards to the phases. They talked about the western part of the state has been waiting to move to general population. So they've been kind of stagnant. So that will be a challenge for us, as we are not directed to move to the general population yet. So maybe a challenge as we, you know, as we work across the border.
Where are we with our county staff? Where do they fall into place with these different phases? I know we've had some that have received it when you come, you know, with the first responders and our jailers and that type of thing, but how about the rest of our county staff?
Yeah, those have been in direct contact on a regular basis. So the jailers, the juvenile detention, detox, those have all been vaccinated. And the rest of the county staff, it's dependent upon the phase we're in. So, you know, we're working with those individuals if there's departments that meet the criteria. So we're working directly with those departments. But generally, overall,
So we have, I mean, we have some people that end up going into people's homes, and I'm hoping that they're considered essential from a standpoint of having the opportunity to have the vaccine.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
what we can tell you is that, as you know, we have to use all the vaccine in a vial, and so we do
Right.
have a list from county departments and throughout the community that we've said if we have an extra dose. So at the end of a shift, we really work hard
You
to
can push
who's
that.
available, who can come in, so we never leave a dose in a bottle.
And I hope I hope we've got a list of our employees who might be interested in that for that opportunity if it comes up too, so.
Yeah, we usually have a fair number of people that have contacted us
Good.
that are interested, so.
Yes.
Yep, the food workers that you're dealing with now, would that include retail grocery clerks, restaurants, bars, all of those?
Gas stations that prepare food.
So any of our constituents that ask, we just refer them to the county website and schedule an appointment.
Right, and we've reached out to many of those as well, all the grocery stores. Surprisingly, we didn't have a flood of people that were coming in, so we were a bit surprised about that. And all of our manufacturing plants, we reached out directly to them, so they're pretty aware of, we gave them a direct link to register. So some of the larger facilities in our community are well vaccinated, so they may have received the vaccine at other places as well, but we've certainly reached out to them.
Thank you.
The Johnson & Johnson, are you getting much of that here?
You know, we keep asking for the Johnson & Johnson just because that would be easy for some of our particularly homebound individuals or going into some of the long-term care facilities if they have new staff or new residents. You know, they've been fully vaccinated, but, you know, as new people come in, they need the vaccine. So I think the Johnson & Johnson would be ideal. In Minnesota, Public Health is not receiving Johnson & Johnson yet. Despite our requests, it's going to healthcare providers. So we continue to request that for those facilities. Even when we look at the inmates in our correctional facilities, Johnson & Johnson would be ideal. So they don't have to wait for a second dose, or maybe they might be out of that facility by the time we get a second dose. So we're still waiting. It's not been available to us yet.
Well, there's a certain population that might be hard to track down for a second one, and so that's the.
Right, we found that with our homeless population. They're pretty transient, so when the second
why-
dose comes available, they're
I
not
guess I
there.
don't understand why public health wouldn't be a big benefactor in getting the Johnson & Johnson for that reason.
I guess I got the same question. I mean, you go right across the river, they got Johnson & Johnson, and it doesn't seem, they couldn't have dropped off some of them here, but I mean,
Right.
I don't know how the distribution goes. I mean, it just,
There is a very small amount that is being distributed to public health in Minnesota. It's a very small amount, and I believe maybe there was a couple of hundred that came into our region at all. And they're saying that they will rotate that, but it's a very small amount coming to public health. But it is coming into Minnesota.
It's coming to Minnesota, but mostly to healthcare providers. So we continue to ask for it. We make the request, but we'll see when they
And
decide they can.
I guess my final thing on this whole deal is, I'm curious, as you were, Kathy, and you're mentioning about what's gonna happen with spring break coming with, I remember it was the last time we saw a spike, and you can look at the graphs, and you can look to August, and you can see when the students came back, they brought it with them.
Right.
And I'm hoping they're not gonna bring it back with them again when they, and I don't mean to pick on them, but
Right.
but when I see the stories about what's going on in Miami, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them almost on each other's shoulders,
Yeah,
they're all gonna go home.
that's right. And then we have Easter, so
Right.
it'll be another
yeah.
break.
So I hopefully will monitor that closely, and
Yeah, unfortunately with the, the college age, they're not in the priority group right now, so that's a challenge. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
thank you for your report. All right, next we have Darren. We got a few things from our HR director. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today. So in order to continue the COVID saga, I have 3 items on the list here for you. The first one is for the COVID-19 sick leave availability to our employees. Just as a brief history, that the federal program ran out in December of 2020, and then this board decided to extend that program until March 30th. So far, during 2020 and 2021, we've had 258 people that have filled out that form. That it means that they have either been isolated or quarantined during that time. And so this was brought to the PIC two weeks ago, I think, and mentioned last board meeting. And the recommendation is to extend this program until April 30th, and then look at it on a month-by-month basis. So right now, we have about 20 people that are either isolated or quarantined, and most of those from the same group. So we are definitely seeing the numbers go down. Before this group came in, we had 0 in isolation or quarantine, and then the payroll before that, we just had a few. So I see that this is going down a little bit. Those that have already used their 80 hours would not be eligible for another 80 hours. And some of the people have used a portion of that 80 hours. And so this program would allow them to use the rest of the 80 hours if they do come in contact or isolated or quarantined due to COVID. So that would be the request at this
If
point.
I can comment on that too, that discussion that we had. We felt April 30th would be good for right now. Certainly, and I raised that question this morning with Kathy regarding the availability of the vaccine to our employees. And as we move on, we're anticipating that to become more and more opportunity to get. And I think that's the best way for us to deal with this is to have our employees vaccinated, then we don't have to worry about this policy. And so I think the intent is to try to send a message to our employees when they have an opportunity, take advantage of it and get the vaccine.
Right, correct.
So,
So that would be the first motion that I would be
okay, we
requesting.
have a request to extend the sick leave, COVID sick leave policy till April 30th.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion?
I got one, this item that came up. I'll say the vaccine is offered to our employees, all our employees. Some don't want to take it. Are they eligible for this sick leave policy?
Yes, they would still be eligible if they get COVID and they're quarantined or isolated. It's going to be very hard to determine or track people that don't want to take the vaccine. You know, some of that gets into medical history and HIPAA violations and all of that. So, and we can't force them to take it at this point.
No, I know we can't force them, but
But they're,
can we give them sick leave?
I think at this point, we would have a hard time denying somebody just because they didn't want to take.
I don't think I think what we would have to do there is look at, if we've had the availability of the vaccine to our employees and they've elected not to take it, that might be an indication then that at what point do we stop this program?
Right.
That becomes the key.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the message that I'm hoping we can send out here too, is that we don't want this program to last forever. Right. We would just as soon see solutions, permanent solutions that are, are tested, And so I, to your question, Frank, I think is from now until the end of April, we can't suggest that because somebody refused the shot, we can't. But there's going to be no guarantee that they're going to have that same opportunity to collect that sick pay starting May 1.
Right. Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Frank? No. Okay, Commissioner Ebinger.
I was just going to say, this only extends through April.
That's right.
Correct. And then we would
We
take
don't
another look.
anticipate having vaccine available across the board for our employees until about that time.
Yeah, I guess that would be a public health question. But each month that goes by, we get more and more employees vaccinated, and hopefully those numbers will go down and down, lessening the need for this program. And I think that's why the PIC recommended that we do a month by month to see what the numbers are looking like. And then once we get to the point where we do away with this program and somebody still doesn't want to get vaccinated and they become sick with COVID, then they're using their own sick leave at that point.
Maybe if I can just correct you slightly, I think what the message was out of PIC was that once the vaccine is readily available for all of our county employees, at that point in time, this program should be suspended.
Right.
I think that's the message that our PIC committee was sending. And I don't know if that kind of goes to where you were going on that.
I take it we're going to have a good idea of availability without violating HIPAA and looking at individuals. Once we know it's generally available, we can suspend this, and
Right.
if they choose not to get vaccinated and they get sick, it comes out of their
That's right.
sick leave.
Well, and also, we have a lot of employees that work in, or live in North Dakota, and if they're opening it up to the general population soon, they will have the opportunity to get vaccinated, possibly sooner than living here in Minnesota, so.
All right, did we vote on that? No, we didn't vote yet. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Your next request.
Next request is the contract tracers. This is just kind of sort of information as well. We still have 7 contract tracers currently working for us. They're variable hour. The first ones were hired back in June of 2020. And originally they came out of the CARES funding, but then the state did put some money forth to pay for their wages. And that grant, I guess it's a grant, runs out in June. And our request is to continue with those contract tracers until June. Kathy McKay, the public health director, says that we do, thinks that we do have enough money to pay them through June or until the money runs out. So this also came to the PIC, and the PIC's recommendation was to continue the contract tracers till June or until the money is exhausted.
Mr. Cayley.
Are they paid according to the amount of work that they're doing, like hourly putting in, or is it?
Yes.
set?
Yes, they're paid hourly.
They're like a variable hour.
They're variable hours, so they don't get benefits or health and any of that, so.
Any other questions? What's the board's wishes? We have a recommendation by the PIC committee to extend the contract tracers' employment to June 30th.
Move to
Right.
approve.
Okay, Commissioner Cayley.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ebinger.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
Say we employ these people now further, I don't know how many hours they get in or what they get, And all of a sudden, we say, now the money runs out, we can't employ you anymore. Do they get unemployment then, or are they eligible for that?
Well, they were temporary hires as a variable hour. I would have to see if I don't want to answer that right now because I'm not positive.
I mean,
I'd have to look into
I
that.
don't know how many hours they get now, so I don't know. What's the average hours these people get?
So far, the 7, well, we had 9 that we had hired. 2 of them have left, and I ran the numbers, and so far, out of those 9, they have worked a total of 1,666 hours since last June. So they haven't even put in worth of full-time's employee.
And I don't know that unemployment benefits are based on your hours worked as opposed to what your compensation was.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an equation, the hours worked weekly, but if they're seasonal employees, it's a little different. And
Yeah.
I think there's a
They're-
gray area as to.
Yeah, the seasonals are a little bit different, but these we categorize as variable hour because we didn't think that they would be working full-time for us, but we needed them longer than our temporaries work 90 days and then they're out, and our seasonal work 6 months and then they're out. So when we hired these, we hired them as variable hour because we didn't know how long we were gonna be needing them. So the question on the unemployment, I would probably want to get back to you on that, on whether they would be eligible for that or not. It's not a huge amount of money that we're paying all 7 of them.
Well, they're still needed.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Your third request is to open the government center to the public.
Yep, so this was a discussion that we had also at the PIC. As you know, the new government center will be opening to the public on March 29th, and we are scheduled to have a press release on March 31st with possibly some press walking through as well to see the new building.
March 31st? After it's open? Is that what you said?
Yes, 3 days after it's open. I think it's a Wednesday. So, and so the discussion came up of, do we open that to the public, or do we do it like we are with the Family Service Center, where you have to have an appointment to come in, and then you have to wait outside and everything like that? And so when we talked to the PIC about it, I think the consensus was that the public would be allowed to come into the lobby. And the reasoning for that, and we would run it similar to how the law enforcement center is running, where the main doors are open, but they only have access to the lobby. And the way, I believe all of you have been through there already and kind of seen the layout. The building is designed so that the citizens are kind of confined to that lobby area. And both on the administration side and on the land management side. And so the PIC's recommendation would be to allow the public into the lobby areas. We would still require masks and social distancing, but there's enough area in the lobby to accommodate, I don't know how many people, but quite a few people if we put some chairs in there. And people probably aren't going to be there a long time, like in the DMV or something like that. They're probably going to be in and out pretty quickly. So that would be the recommendation, that the new government center on the 29th open to the public so that they can come into the lobby area and have government services provided to them.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I agree. I think that it needs to be open to the public. The reason that we paid for it with CARES Act dollars was to do just that, make sure business as normal went on. I'm a little concerned with the timing of the press release after we're actually there. And the reason that doesn't make sense to me is we'll still have folks coming to the main courthouse.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, just to clarify, the news release is going out this Wednesday. And part of that news release will be notifying that the government center will open on the 29th and include that the media will be available on the 31st.
Okay.
So the news release will come out this week.
Okay, good. And I think that needs to be, really a focused effort to make sure nothing is more of a pain to have to go to one building only to find out that technically you should go to another. And we just really have to be deliberate in signage to make sure that folks are aware. And I believe during early voting, we had those plastic tripod stands out by the parking lot. If we could have something like that, so even if they do get here, get out of their car, can see, nope, I need to go south and do that, that would be helpful.
I believe that Mark Sloan has also provided the front desk downstairs, court security with some maps and everything. So if somebody does come in, they can give them a map and the address and say this is where they are now. So it'll be a little bit easier to find
Okay.
us over there.
And I think too, it's probably important at all of our county buildings to have signage relating to that, so that if someone needs to go to highway for some reason, they can at least see that there's been a change in location for the majority of the departments.
Okay.
And I also want to thank you. I stopped by unannounced on a Friday afternoon, and Darren gave me a great tour of the facility, so you can see what's going on out there. There's been a lot of work and planning and flexibility required from staff, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, I got a chance to look at it yesterday, and it was looking really good. Okay, what's the board's wishes? I know another pick recommendation would be to open the government center to the public.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? I just want to add, I think we can do this safely, and I think it's going to be a good deal for our citizens. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're right on time, 9 o'clock. We have interviews for reappointments for the two Wild Rice Watershed District Board managers. I see we had one of them walk in this morning. Well, there's Mark online. Good, okay. Let me just get my stuff over here. I think maybe what I'm going to do is ask each of you for our two new commissioners, if you, maybe Mark, we can start with you, just kind of introduce yourself to our new board members, and as
Sure.
from what we know right now, Steve, there were no other interested parties?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. These are
Right.
our candidates.
Right, well, very good. Well, I think it's worthwhile. Mark, we'll start with you if you want to just give a little introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. My name's Mark Harless. I am a farmer, live north of Felton, right about 3/4 of a mile south of the Clay County, Norman County line on Highway 9. I farm with my wife and my son, and we farm corn and soybeans, black beans. Have been active in water issues for many, many years, probably prior to the 97 flood. So I've been kind of in tune with it. Got on the board, I don't remember how many years ago now, 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. And I have to say it's been a pleasant surprise. It's a well-run board compared to what I remember back in 97. And in those days, I think our management team does a very good job, and our board, I think, generally functions well. And I'm happy to be able to put my name in for another term, so I would appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Mark. Dwayne, good morning.
Yep, good morning. Dwayne Erickson's my name. I guess Mark did a heck of a job meeting. I'm also a farmer, lived in Becker County all my life. Enjoy what I do very, very much. And I'd like you to consider me to be an applicant for another 3 years on the Wild Rice Watershed Board.
And it's my understanding that there was communication from Becker County that Dwayne was their choice once again, preferred choice for the position, right?
Right, that's my understanding, yes.
All right.
You know, looking at this, I know there's questions here, some of that, but I think we refrain from that, and I've attended most of the Wild Rice Watershed Board meetings. Both of these gentlemen attend monthly meetings plus more, and they've represented our counties well, Becker and Clay, and I would make a recommendation, reappoint them.
I'll second the motion as well.
All right, is this, do we have to do these one at a time, or can we do them together?
Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate if we do them one at a time.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dwayne Erickson to the Watershed Board.
I'll second that
Okay,
motion.
we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo for appointment for Mr. Erickson. Any further discussion?
Just maybe should clarify for our new commissioners, there is a resolution of appointment from Becker County. Do you want to explain to them that we make Becker County's appointment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo. We're a participant in two watersheds, the Buffalo Red and the Wild Rice. And how the Wild Rice works is we are part of six counties, and they partner with, two counties partner with each other. And the partner that is the largest of the two partners has the rights to designate both of the appointees. In this case, we work hand in hand with Becker County to bring forth who they would like to have, and this board generally takes that appointment and addresses it here. As Commissioner Mojo mentioned, Becker County in this case has also provided, Mr. Hanson has been before that board, and they have already approved it, and that's why that resolution is here. So.
According to Bowser, it's Clay County's responsibility to make the appointment.
Yep.
That's what, I was a little confused
Yeah.
by the resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think what we're doing here is we've kind of bypassed this questionnaire. I hope it's okay with the both of you. Those of us that have worked with them before kind of know. If you would like, we could certainly ask these questions of them if you'd like to hear their answers, but they've both done a pretty good service to public service dealing with the board. So if you're okay with that, we'll suspend with those questions because we already know, well, the majority of the board knows them. All right, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to
I'll make a motion to appoint Mark Harless to the board.
I'll second that motion.
a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Congratulations, and thank you both for your service. It's kind of sometimes a thankless job that you do when you're in the watershed business, but we appreciate your service. Commissioner Mojo.
Mr. Chair, I might add that, I have both Dwayne and Mark's phone numbers in my phone and call them both frequently. They serve Clay County's interests very well on that board and are very active, and I appreciate it, and thank you for your continued service, both of you.
I appreciate you considering me, and those of you that have my phone number know that I kind of like to be picked on and poked a little, so don't change.
I thought you do the picking on it.
Well, I'm just trying to keep up to you.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Am I free to go?
You're, no, part of your job is you have to sit through this.
The rest of it.
No, I'm kidding.
Going to a land auction would be just as much fun.
All right, our next item is the request for approval of the construction manager contract agreement with construction engineers for the resource recovery project. Kurt, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you remember, I appeared before you last week. No, last week I was in Montana, that's right. The week before, I was here to talk about the construction manager for our resource recovery campus. And at that time, y'all selected construction engineers as the construction manager. So what we've been doing here is we've been working with construction engineers to develop a contract for the construction management at risk component of it. And we've completed that. It's essentially the same contract that's used for the jail. It's the same one that was used for the law enforcement center. It's been reviewed by Steve, and Brian has also reviewed it for foreman execution. The highlights of it are the things that I think are pertinent for the discussion right now is the construction engineers will be awarded $18,200 before they come up with the guaranteed maximum price. And we're working on the guaranteed maximum price, and hopefully we'll have that within the next month. And then once they have that guaranteed maximum price, their fee is 2.9% of the entire cost of the project. So with that, I stand to answer any questions y'all might have, and hopefully you'll approve the contract.
I guess I don't have the contract in front of me, but I'm got to kind of go to Brian.
Can we send that out?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's fine. I just want to make sure that Brian and Steve, you're,
Yeah, I've looked at it. I think to form and execution, it looks good. I went over with Kirk on the dollars that obviously I wouldn't know, but I think those all seem reasonable in fair amounts, so.
And we looked at it from the cost perspective. What they identified during our interview process matches what we've asked in both the initial $18,200, the 2.9%, and then the 5% change fee is consistent from what we talked. So,
Very good.
I would make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned before, we're working to come up with a guaranteed maximum price, and we hopefully have that here in a month. We're working pretty diligently. One other aspect that's popped up here, just as an FYI, Matt Evans, who you all know, has got the COVID, and he's pretty sick, actually. He's really, really pretty sick, so hopefully we can get him back up in speed and working on stuff. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
How many commissioners will probably see you sooner?
This week.
Yeah, I still am going to try to find a time when we can get together to go over that operations and the capital needs besides the building itself. We got a
Very
meeting
good.
today with on our building committee, and one of the things we still need to tie down is your stuff first.
Very good.
All right. So, and Commissioner Mojo and I will try to work on establishing a time to meet with you and going over that.
Very good. Thank you.
Committee reports, let's see. Oh, Commissioner Mojo, would you like to start?
Short straw, yeah. Sorry. Okay,
The one thing about being the board chair is you go last and you don't, everybody else
Right.
reports everything. for you.
yeah. Well, I'm just impressed that you're on time. I maybe should make this last a little longer.
All right, let's take a 15-minute break.
Sorry. I know as a board chair, sometimes you can't control how long they go either, but last week, on Tuesday, attended the executive director review for human resources for the Lakes and Prairies Community Action Partnership. Those reviews were quite favorable. We then also looked at compensation as during 2020, we put all of those discussions on hold just for the sensitivity of the current pandemic climate. That evening, I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and we did discuss the Red Rock Estates that had been at this board meeting that morning. That did pass, and we had election of officers and talked about the upcoming compensation, or the comp plan meetings that are today. And then I also that day tuned into the Red River Watershed Management Board meeting. Rob is that director there, just so active in so many different things. It's really enlightening to sit and listen to those meetings, so I appreciated the opportunity to do that. At the MetroCog meeting on Thursday, talked about our comp study and several different comp studies that are on the list for the summer, and also the bicycle pedestrian plan study. If you are interested in any of that, go to the MetroCog website. They really do have a lot of information there. On Friday, this wasn't a committee assignment, but did have an opportunity to speak with the director for the Kurdish American group in town. They are represented well by Farouk on that, and talked a little bit about the tobacco ordinances that are going on with the municipalities. We'll see further on that. Yesterday, I attended the Lakeland Mental Health Committee meeting. They are working on their audit. It will be a little bit different this year, and because of that, we don't have the financials from the first 2 months of the year, so next month we will do a lot of work on that. We did reappoint Mike McCarthy, as this board had done the week prior. Mike serves Clay County very well on not only the Lakeland Mental Health board, but also the Clay County Collaborative, and he's a old commissioner, so he really knows what's going on there. Big updates from administration on so many different legislative topics that really could affect them. They continue to really be watching the telehealth piece. That is transformational allowance that has happened during COVID to meet folks and provide services through telehealth therapy. We've had a difficult time recruiting psychiatrists there just because of the nature of the job. It's difficult to recruit and retain. And so allowing telehealth has really helped to have providers in other areas. So then we did talk about the CEO review. That we're just finishing up there, and then we'll have Personnel Committee discuss that. The other big piece that I forgot to mention is there's a case management barrier coming out of St. Paul, what's allowed, and Rhonda's really on top of that, but because Health Partners is such a huge provider in the city's areas, Sanford is not noted as a provider on those policies, and so it's just really difficult since Sanford is such a huge provider for us. So they're continuing to advocate to allow some of those on the case management side. It really would help us financially. And then talked a little bit about COVID planning, and they're having about 50% of their staff that have chosen to take the vaccination, and it's the same discussion we're having. How do you encourage staff to take that, because it will help business as usual going on down the line. And I believe that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebinger.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, attended virtually the AMC County Government 101, I think second or third session. Covered good government and the role of professional staff. They're going to continue to have monthly trainings virtually for 1 or 2 more months. Hopefully somewhere in the summer, we're going to be able to meet and have the traditional in-person seminar in the cities. Thursday, attended the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC Board meeting. Looked at updating the strategic plan. We reviewed their 2014 Next Generation Economy Plan and the 2018 update. And they reviewed the points that they're doing in 2021 to update their strategic planning. Also looked at a proposal. They are constructing a survey for primary businesses in a region that will give them a data set that they'll be able to use to encourage other companies into the area. That'll include, we specifically asked what the Minnesota and Clay County businesses would be included, and they're going to be part of that survey. On Friday the 19th, attended the Substance Abuse Committee meeting that we had with Jason McCoy from Clay County Public Health. Discussed the flavored tobacco initiatives that are going on in Moorhead and Dilworth. My understanding is, it sounds like both of them have been tabled or are not actively moving forward at this point. The state initiative, it's moved through 4 House committees and 1 Senate committee. There's been some support there, and these committees have signed on, but it's still in the works with the legislature there. Discuss some of the funding that's available for cessation and prevention. There's $760 million in funding and tax money that comes in from tobacco companies and from tobacco taxes. Less than 1% of it is $75 million, is a specific amount, is allocated for prevention and cessation. There's also $86 million coming in from a lawsuit that Minnesota was part of, and they're hoping to get some additional funding out of these funding sources. Recreational marijuana has gone through 6 House committees, but no Senate committees, and it's probably at least a year away. Concerns with that legislation still, it gives no local control. The state controls all aspects of it if it's put in place and communities don't have input on how they're going to deal with it. Also discussed some issues that are coming up, and I'm going to be meeting with Kawar Farouk later today with the Kurdish community with concerns they have in the flavored tobacco legislation and ordinances that are pending regarding use of hookah, which is a cultural practice of the Kurdish community and Middle Eastern community here in our area. And those discussions will be ongoing. On Monday, the 22nd, was part of the second session of strategic planning that we're having with the Northwest Regional Emergency Broadcast Group. We're getting regional feedback and needs. There's going to be a state initiative to change the state strategic plan for emergency broadcasting coming up later in the summer. We want to have things worked out to where our input is brought in by representatives on a state meeting. We've identified some strengths and needs that we have in our regional area. And we went through a anybody that's done strategic planning, pretty mind-numbing, point-by-point review of the current state plan. I will not drag the commission into that, but there's some takeaways I have on this. One of the things that several of the commissioners that are involved in this said at the onset is the technical aspects of this are not things that we're familiar with, and we're relying heavily on our professional staff to give us feedback on where we need to go with this. During the course of this process, I was very impressed with Mary Philippi, the director of the Red River Regional Dispatch Center, and particularly Brian Zasterpill, who's not only the technical lead over at the RRDC, but he's been put in a part-time position with the regional as their technical advisor. And the IT specialists, the communication specialists all over our region defer and ask Brian's opinion on things. Mary was able to clarify some of the real detailed things that we had to make decisions on. So I think we can be real proud of the professional skills that we've got here working for us in Clay County with the RRDC. Just a shout out to them. They move the process along with their ability to analyze and give good insight into what the problems are. Another thing that came up, and this was in my personal experience when I was over the finance committee for the RRDC, the cost that a lot of regional PSAPs, a lot of communication centers around our region are running into with having to do the funding challenges that come with the maintenance contracts that you have with software companies. It is massive. And it is causing some discussion among the various counties about mergers to cover these costs and to offset some of it. That and the fact that they can't get qualified staff hired. So these are two things that in my dealings with the RRDC, were always a constant challenge. Our contract with now Tyler Technologies, used to be New World, was pretty extensive. And we figured out 20 years ago what some of the counties are looking at right now is that combining operations, it helps you get qualified staff, it helps you retain qualified staff, and helps you meet some of the massive expenses that are coming out. I don't know what the answer is. A lot of states have done regional PSAPs that are set up by the state. That would be a huge undertaking in Minnesota, but the expenses that we run into with every one of these operations and simply paying for upgraded CAD and record management computer systems, it is extensive, and it's not something you can get around because your security of your whole operation is based on those and your data retention. So there's a lot of issues that are going to have to be worked out, and hopefully they'll be addressed by the state. And the only other addition I've got is I have communicated with AMC, and with the Public Safety Committee, and our consultant there, Carly Stark. We addressed the issues with the deadly force policy changes and the impact it's having in our region. It's my understanding there is a discussion between the attorneys, or with the attorneys and the sheriffs and the chiefs in the area, and that's going to be ongoing. But it is a statewide problem, and Ms. Stark issued a really comprehensive letter to the chairs of the public safety committees in the House and the Senate, and she's reached out to a lot of the delegation around the state, particularly those areas that are being impacted by having the out-of-state partnerships not coming into Minnesota to provide police services. So it's being worked on.
If I can, just for a second, for the public too, at our last board meeting, there had been a discussion that we were going to have today here, the sheriff and maybe Shannon Monroe from the Moorhead PD, and at their request, they had recommended that we delay that presentation today. So if the public that watched last time, if they're wondering why it didn't happen today, it was at the request of the sheriff and the police chief from Moorhead to gather more information. So I just wanted to give a heads up to our listening audience if they were tuning in for that reason why it wasn't on. So
I appreciate that clarification. That is something that I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion. Right now, the legislation, the only thing that would change, but it's part of the SAFE Act that's in it's come over from the Senate. It's in the House right now. And the only thing that would change would be the enactment of changes to deadly force policy, which has already come into play March 1st, but there's a real concern about needing more time to train, particularly scenario-based training in the new practices for departments around the state, and for working out with your out-of-state partners. Many departments, including our Sheriff's Department and Moorhead Police, rely on working that out with our partners, because in light of the changes, most of our adjoining states are not interested in sending their officers into our jurisdiction to support in a capacity of the potential to use deadly force.
as it stands right now.
As it stands. So they're working on that, and I respect the fact they want to be able to get the full picture before they bring it to us. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaylee.
Thank you, Chair. Tuesday, the 16th, this wasn't one of my committees, but I did attend the state and local government prenatal to 3 collaboration action meeting put on by the National League of Cities, NACO, and the National Conference of State Legislators. This was highlighting some of the work being done in Wisconsin to address the child care and early learning crisis. This is a nationwide issue, so I just wanted to see what some of the ideas being put into play around our region are. And I can share some of those later. Also on Tuesday, I attended the Adult Mental Health Local Advisory Council meeting. This was the first time they had met in around a year. And we did not have a quorum, so no major business happened there, but we worked on a plan for how to begin meeting again. I'm looking forward to that group. On Wednesday, the 17th, I attended AMC's County Government 101 meeting, which Commissioner Ebbinger already reported well on. Also on Wednesday, the 17th, I had a Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County Board meeting. We had a report from Mark Peel on what he's been working on. He's been doing some presentations virtually that have been very well attended and received by the public. We also talked about the annual meeting, which will be on May 6th and will feature the foremost Teddy Roosevelt reenactor at 7 p.m. As well as we discussed plans for a new strategic plan and reviewed the old one. On Friday, the 19th, I also attended the Substance Abuse Committee meeting, which Commissioner Ebbinger already reported on. And following that, I had an Early Childhood Initiative meeting on that Friday as well. We had a report from Liddy Borbum on the Kids Count on Us report as a part of the EPIC project. And this was put together by a coalition of childcare providers, parents, and teachers representing 512 centers in Minnesota. The findings were fascinating. I will share that summary or the full report if anybody's interested in that. I haven't finished reading the full report yet, but when I do plan to contact our legislatures to voice my support for some of their proposals to address this issue. On Friday, the 19th, I also had CAP-LP board training with Lori Schwartz. That concludes my report.
Commissioner Kaylee, Commissioner Gross.
Last Tuesday after the commission meeting, we had highway tracking. There we discussed the North Broadway Bridge, and pretty much there's a lot of unknowns there, what's gonna happen with that bridge. There's been no decision made. Right now, it's closed, and it's gonna remain closed till someone comes up with a plan there, or talked a little about the project in the turn lane, construction going on in Linden. That's not going on yet, but it will be this summer. They still have to get some land purchased before they can move ahead with that project. Talked about all the upcoming county bids that have been going on. There'll be some in Hawley, Linden, Township box culverts, dust control, yearly supply bids, all that, those county bids were discussed. We also talked about that County Road 115, that last meeting we had Wayne Leopard here talking about trying to get that road redone. We were thinking about doing some sort of a summer tour for the new commissioners. Every once in a while, every year, this hasn't been a yearly thing, but several years already, we've taken a bus and just traveled around the county and looked at all the roads, getting you acquainted with the roads and the culvert projects that are going on. So we're looking at doing that again this year, and that road will be included in the tour.
I think we're looking at June timeframe, I think is what we.
Yeah, somewhere in that area. Yesterday, we had the building committee meeting, where we discussed the land swap proposal with the city of Moorhead. I think that's gonna be signed. Is that gonna be signed this coming weekend, or?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gross, we are going to be bringing that before the board here at our next board meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. So there we're looking at building Quonset, or a big building for all the sheds that we've got out there right now by the motor vehicle department. We're gonna replace those sheds over there in the new area that we're gonna be getting. So, and then we discussed some of the proposals that we're looking at in this building too. We're moving some of the people around with the judges' chambers and stuff like that. So all those plans were discussed. And we're also discussing the security over the Family Service Center. Whether we want to keep that person there or not. Yeah, so that's been, at the present time, we plan on maintaining the security over there. But as we discussed this morning in our meeting, as far as security out of the new Government Service Center, we won't have it. There we'll just have open access, whereas over here, we still will maintain a security person at this time. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Gross. On March 16th, I also had the Highway Traffic Committee meeting. The only additional thing that I'll report on that Commissioner Gross didn't touch on was our engineer is going to be involved with a self-review of the P3 proposals for the diversion project. And that's going to take place from March 27th to April 4th, and it's going to consume quite a bit of his time. And the direction that I certainly gave him is to watch for anything that would be of concern in that whole process for Clay County, that we want to make sure that if there's issues that he sees from an engineering standpoint, that get those raised and express those concerns if there are any. And then they plan on, after they do that review, there's going to be what they refer to as a team consensus meeting from April 5th to April 8th. I'm assuming that's where they're going to be going over these contracts. You can imagine how big they are in $1 billion project. They're going to be extreme, so they'll probably be going over that. Then on the 22nd, yesterday, we did have our Building Improvement Committee meeting. That's been talked about quite a bit. We talked about how this is all going to come to play with our bonding plan. One thing, Commissioner Ebringer, that I brought up that we have not included in there yet would be what the intentions are for capital for the dispatch center. I know there's been discussion about relocation, and I think we have a percentage, there's going to be a percentage that's going to be our share on that, and we don't know if their intention is to bond the whole thing and then look for us to pay it that way, or if they're going to be asking for an upfront capital. So if that's their wishes, or if that's the way we want to do it, then we would want to incorporate that dollar amount into our capital bonding project. So, we're trying to touch up all of these things that we're looking at from now through 2028, actually, I think, Steve, is that what we're looking at? Where if we can escalate all these things and save on inflationary costs and good interest rates. Commissioner Mojo, you've asked a few times about the voting issue. We did talk about that again yesterday, about what's been going on in this place. I think what's going to happen now at the Government Center, they intend to have a place there for walk-in voting. And Lori Johnson has been working with the city because the city is the one who's going to have to make all the legal changes to the voting sites. And I think the deadline for that is December, but she assured me that they're working on that. So I know you've had those questions, and I just wanted to make sure to.
I think when we do have it finalized, I'd like to have a session during a board meeting to update that. It's to make sure the public is very clear where sites are. It's important.
Right. And then also, yesterday afternoon, we did, for the comprehensive plan updates that are going to go on today, there's going to be 2 meetings, one at noon and one at 5, I believe it is. So we did a kind of test run of that yesterday. The comprehensive plan update, public information meetings that are today.
That's today.
Well, the only reason that I was involved with that one is because I'm talking to open it up.
Perfect.
So that,
Good.
yeah, so it was just to
I missed something.
do a test run through of the agenda, so to speak. So I'm going to have about a 20-second statement, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bill Davis, the Planning Commission Chair. So that, I believe, concludes my report. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Start out by thanking you guys.
Just, excuse me, I did want to touch too on the land swap issue. We're really into some, I think the consensus is Moorhead has agreed to what we had talked about in terms of what the price would be. I think that's been, as far as I know, that's been resolved. And I do just want to give a shout out again to Joe Olson for he's done an awful lot of work in discussing, we're gonna have obviously the sheriff has a lot of space right now, so he's gone with them to see about future needs, public health, his own maintenance department, STS. So, in his presentation, we actually, and for the price that he was coming in with, it was very attractive to us. And we actually encouraged him to actually add another 1,200-foot bay. I mean, it's, as this county grows and as things are needed, it's better to have it ready now. And if it's something that isn't needed, we can always lease it out or whatever. And then there was also some discussion about seeing if we can move it on site further east, so that we can just reserve a little bit of that land for some other potential future use. So, so they're going to work on that. He's been working with Mike Love. I hope I'm saying his name right, from an engineering firm. We have to do a concrete apron all the way around that for being able to have trucks come in and out. So, but it's a very nice plan, and I'm thankful for Joe for that. Okay, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just start off by thanking the board for allowing, I was off last week, and allowing that time off. It was nice to get away with the family. Just provide a quick update from the previous week then. On the last Tuesday, I did have meetings with Joe Olson, Rhonda Porter, and Sheriff Empteen. On Wednesday, I met with Dan Molly on a series of shared issues between the city of county. That morning, we also had the county management, or we had COVID update with our management staff, and I also talked about the government center and the changes here at the courthouse. That afternoon, I met with the city and county administrators and managers. We try to meet each week just to kind of talk about what's happening in our region here. And a lot of our focus was on COVID and the rescue funds as part of the $1.9 trillion program. On the 11th, I met with Darren and Mark Sloan on a series of issues out at the government center. That afternoon, I met with Eric Dodds, Jessica Warren, and Dr. Bob Zimmerman. As a pre-meeting for our MCC JPA meeting that's going to be held this Thursday. That afternoon, I also met with Lori and Darren and Colleen just to make sure that we had a clear procedure on when tax waiver requests become before this board. And I think we have a good plan there. I also talked with Scott Fettig from Klein McCarthy. He was looking for an update on our government center as they'd done some work with us. I met, following day, I met with Gabe Tweeten, our emergency manager, on a series of issues, and I also had a PIC meeting, which has already been addressed through some of the items today, and I'm sure our committee shared last week. The building committee attended yesterday. Again, just for the public's standpoint, again, we will be here on the second floor through this Friday. Starting next Monday, the 29th, the Auditor, Treasurer, Planning and Zoning, Recorder and Assessor will be moving out to the Government Center. The courthouse will be going through a transition over the next few months, probably looking at right around that mid-April. The court administration will be moving up to the second floor. So when our public comes in, they will need to come to the second floor to ask for some courts. Starting April 1st, the courts are going to begin using our old boardroom. There's going to be some work that's going to be going on there this week in preparation of that. And there will just be some minor work that will make that serviceable. And then with the idea that right around the June 1st time, probation is going to be moving into what is now the court administration area. So yesterday I met with Darren, Joe, Lori Johnson, Mark Sloan on different topics that happened over the last week while I was gone. We worked work continues to wrap up out at the government center. Again, we're really down to two departments needing to get set up. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to have a news release that's going to go out on this Wednesday to notify the change, in addition to our web pages and our social media information. And then we will allow with no ribbon cutting per se because of COVID, we will allow the media a time on the 31st from 4 to 6 to come and take a look. I did yesterday afternoon, I met with Brandon Lunick, and I just want to say I had the opportunity to tour the Career Academy, and I know this board has been very vocal in that support. It's set to open up this next fall of 2021. It's roughly 140,000 square feet, and it is amazing. It's about midway through, but you can see the concept. And Brandon, Mr. Luna took me through there. He indicated that if at any point you are interested as a board, that you could individually ask him, and he'll take you out there. And so, with the trades, the cabinetry, the plumbing, the election, robotics, the different lab setup that they actually have a second level that they've added in that Sam's building. Culinary, the business programs, just what an asset it's going to be. It's exciting to see in the great detail and the work that they did out there. So I just wanted to point that out. And then again, there is still time, as the commissioners have mentioned, there's still time to register today for the MetroCog Comprehensive Plan public meeting. Again, they'll be from noon to 1 and 5:30 to 6:30. And those registrations can be either on our Facebook page, our web page, and also MetroCog's. With that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Steve. Ryan, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was only going to update, I think, just really what you covered on the use of force items. I talked with Commissioner Ebinger a little bit about it. We have a meeting set up with the chiefs of police for the 30th to discuss things further, and I would expect at some point after that, and as the legislature continues to act on the matter, we'll probably come back in front of you with Sheriff and Chief Monroe and giving an update of where we're at with some of the use of force issues that are ongoing. So,
Thank you. Steve, in your report, you mentioned that media update was going to be from 4 to 6 on the 31st. I'm wondering if that is really the best time to have that, because they're all they have their stories done by then, and the likelihood of them being able, especially the television media, the likelihood of them being able to have somebody there might be not quite as good, because they're they're back doing their stories for the day at that time. So something to consider if it isn't too late to maybe make an adjustment to that time. It's ultimately your call, but I just think from the television media standpoint, it might be difficult for them to attend that.
Certainly. We'll look at that.
Okay, thank you. Colleen, do you have anything for us? All right. We're adjourned.